I'm Iman Rapetti and welcome to our PIPSI 2023 Media Box.
I'm Jay Van Zyl, or Dr. Jay Van Zyl, and I'm a computational social scientist.
I was hoping to say that title because it is so delicious, the concept of how human beings connect and integrate themselves with technology. And I'm glad that we're ending this whole gathering on a philosophical note, Jay. So what is it all about, and what is the objective of the work that you do?
The basis of it is that we're trying to understand, or we attempt to understand, the biological system called the human in its environment, in its setting, and that means that we want to find evidence of all the things that it gets involved in through the data points that it leaves behind. So in social sciences, if you use nomothetic or idiographic research methods, means that you can only truly understand that system by immersing yourself, and that means that having a sense of empathy and connecting with that human about what they feel, what they think, and how they actually live their lives. And inherently humans are terrible at doing that. And that's why you find that bad things happen and good things often, can be trumped by all the things that are not so good, because we don't truly understand the outcomes of what we get involved in. Now, computational social science is taking a view on this, is saying that the things that people say, they always go back on. They change their minds, they keep on shifting, they lie, they make up stories. There's what we call the conceptual past that essentially describe a past that they want it to be, and they think that you should believe it. In our world, we believe nothing. We only look at the evidence, at the shreds, at the breadcrumbs of all the pieces that you have left behind. We take all of this and we assemble a conceptual view because it's historical. Then what we attempt to do is, in the moment, figure out all the things based on dynamic complexity in a society that are busy shifting, that's going to get you to behave differently in the next minute, hour, day, week, and then build out a view on what that is over time, and then deal with interventions to influence what we want those outcomes to potentially be.
So take a breath on there, because there are a couple of really big and deep concepts that you just shared with us now. The first is, you make us sound really lousy as a species, right? Human beings. But moving more to your analogy of the breadcrumb and how the breadcrumbs and how people behave, what their choices are like. We would probably call it algorithms. And what you're suggesting is how you can use that information to kind of shepherd people into breaking with their own patterns in a way, and exerting some influence.
Yeah, so if I can pick up on one word you said, and that's around algorithms. So a piece of research that we're working on at the moment that has been of interest, that I'm working on about 5 years now, is called the human organism as algorithm. And the human organism as an algorithm means that we often forget that this biological system, with its error, got us to this point that we are living in today, where we've got access to services, access to a better life than we've had historically. And we've been on this journey from the moment we started speaking, give or take, 50,000 years ago, when that gene is shown in our genetic makeup, called the FOX2P gene, that gets us to speak. So imagine that we spoke for thousands of years before we wrote anything down. Then we wrote things down for a few thousand years before we digitized it, and within an incredibly short period of time, we now are obsessed with storing everything that we collect. Every word we say, every text that we write, every interaction that we do. And that means that we're entering an age where the algorithm, this biological being with all of its error, and the species being what it is, means that it is that got us to this point. We've got, up until, if you think about it, in late 1800s, there was 1 billion people on the planet. We now broke through November last year to 8 billion, if you look at the human population counter around the globe. So we now know that our ability to stay alive, to share what we experience, and to keep more people going than in all of history is some evidence of success. But with that success comes a sense of arrogance that in our profession we often attempt to understand. We want to know, why is it that humans, when they conquer something, they get overly confident. They get a sense of, I know what's going on. And that's also how societies then go through a restructure. So it's that error of mistake making, of attempting to do things that you don't understand what the future holds, that is part of our success.
And it's also part of our downfall, right? Because it's a double-edged sword. As much as there is light, there is also darkness, and we see it manifest in famines, civil wars, global wars. Let's bring it down then to this world of payments, which obviously it's directly connected, because we're talking about influencing human behavior. You're talking about giving people things that they didn't even realize that they needed. In a sense, shepherding them into a direction perhaps not even of their choosing. Some would say that's a little bit devious, right? How do you manage those two things of getting people? And in your world, you probably say, these are good things. We want you to look over here and come and get these sorts of things. But you have to also manipulate human behavior. And I don't mean the word manipulate in the negative.
Well, Iman, I think that the big thing to look at firstly is that manipulation as a discipline is not what we work on. And maybe just to give a quick context here.
Yeah.
In social science, in the broader social sciences and social influence and social engineering, you get one group of people and one part of our discipline that deals with propaganda, and that means that taking a certain outcome that I want a society to see as a positive outcome for itself, even if it's not, and I then want to program that entire society en masse. So what's happened with Cambridge Analytica and a number of the people in our profession, they use it for purposes beyond what we initially thought we were even capable of doing. On the other end, if you work within a highly focused, dedicated setting, and I know that there is a potential better outcome that if I can get you to participate in certain sports activity, to eat a certain kind of meal, to get involved in certain kind of activities financially to make sure that you are safe at the end of a journey, sometimes the rules that you have to play by are obscured from you. Imagine any human walking around anywhere in the world and you have to ask him, when last, and just think about this from a payments point of view, when last did you put in fuel? What did you spend on your last meal? How many meals have you bought in the last month? How many times have you driven in an Uber? What was the exact amount that you paid? Now look at the correlation between how much food you spent money on versus how many times you went to entertainment, and what is it doing to your financial situation in the moment. Humans don't think like that. But if I had to ask you, when did you go on your last great holiday? When did you have a great break? You might have a memory of it. You might have a memory of the date and the time. So what's happened with our ability to transact and with the embeddedness of money as an exchange of value that sits embedded in everything that we do, there's so much evidence of the real human, even if we don't use it to influence you. And we talk about influence and intervention.
Not manipulation.
Not manipulation,
Right.
and in most cases not even nudging. Because nudging says that I am pushing you without you being happy
Aware.
with what I'm or being aware with what I'm doing to you. And we think that that's not correct. But if I opt you in and I ask you if you want to be part of the journey, and I know that you're going to get benefit, and I want to induce buyers into what I can service you with, and you know that you're going to get economic, physical, mental, or other kind of wellness as an outcome, you are more likely to engage as long as it's transparent. So that means that in the world of contracts and engagements with how we deal with the world around us, most people don't even read their search engine license agreement. Their video service agreement is around what do they do with the data when they translate all of that video that you've done on your favorite video channel provider. Because most of those agreements say we will analyze the content and use it for our partners to sell you better services. So you go to your search engine and you just had a conversation with a friend about some trip to some holiday destination, and then you see it appear in your search, it's because you opted in. It's not manipulation, it's the fact that most humans don't care. They are willing to trade information and behavior for benefit.
I think that you and I would have a week-long conversation just on that strand alone. And it is fascinating, where do those boundary lines lie and how we evaluate things, right? Let's go to this one then, the concept in your world of AI, which isn't defined as we would normally define AI as artificial intelligence. What is this augmented intelligence all about?
So if we think of this, the concept of intelligence and the concept of human versus machine, human intelligence is seen as the human's ability to memorize, make an understand or build an understanding of its environment and contextually be aware of what's going on. And there are many definitions in most of them need some way of reasoning because we don't quite know. Doesn't matter what people tell you, what intelligence really is in the context of a human setting. Artificial intelligence, in most cases, is the broader discipline. It's got machine learning and it's got visual technology, all other technologies in there that makes an assumption that I can mimic a human. The reason why it's very difficult to mimic a human is because a human comes with error. So what we've attempted to do is to say that why do we want to be as arrogant as saying that we're going to build the artificial intelligence outcome? We rather want to create an augmented outcome. And an augmented outcome means that the intelligence of the tool augments my capabilities. So it assists me on my journey to become what I want to be, not what the machine wants me to be. So what's happened though, is that with something like generative technologies, think about how it works, right? So generative AI is you taking a certain input, you go through an encoding process and through an embedding, you create, through the latent space, common patterns of behavior, you decode it. The decoding process is called generative because it produces the same output as it uses as an input. So you take language as an input, trillion plus tokens, come up with a 70,000 word vocabulary, you produce an output that's novel, not accurate. It's perfectly novel. So it's perfectly accurate in the context of language that makes sense. So that's fine for generative AI. You still need an AI that's going to figure out that Jay is going to go, or Iman's going to go and spend money somewhere, and that somebody else has caught into your account and is going to spend money without you knowing. How's that going to help you? Because this is in the moment. That's looking at historical activity. So that means that this in the moment augmentation of having a digital twin, of having this digital AI helping to figure out what happens next, we see as a major focus of where a lot of this is going. So that means on the back of payments capabilities, on the back of anything that's got to do with real, not necessarily real time as in the immediate moment, but what happens in the next number of minutes, hours, and what is it that I'm going to be doing? Most people don't have a plan. You don't have a plan normally to say, well, yes, I'm going to put in fuel on a Friday, I'm going to go to dinner on, after that, and then the next day I'm going to, top up my phone account, and the next time I'm going to perform a certain transaction, and then you slot out that plan in intimate level of detail. Most humans don't do that. So that means that because it's fluid, you can explore opportunities of engagement if the algorithm can learn and converge as you experience life.
How do you get people to A, get their heads around this, and B, to get comfortable and accepting around this? Because our information, our likes, our dislikes, I can't tell you how many places I've been where somebody said, I was just thinking about this and now it's on my phone. That means they're listening to us. And so there's a great deal of that level of uncertainty. Perhaps it's not even distrust, but it's uncertainty because people still subscribe to services. They still do transactions and they exchange. How do you win them over?
I mean, can I be pessimistic for a moment?
Sure.
That's not really my nature, but I can give you a view on that.
Go ahead.
We don't care. And the reason is that you keep on trading access to who you are in return for benefits. And you're willing to do it. So I don't care is the phrase that is the essence of the entire sector of people that create data, manage background, manage anything that you don't see, is that it's an I don't care scenario. So that means that if you really don't like it, exit. It's your choice. It's your choice to turn your phone on. It's your choice to phone another person. It's your choice to chat. It's your choice to go participate in that video call. It's your choice to send that email. It's your choice to go to your search engine, to your favorite social media. It's entirely and utterly your choice. So if we then say, you have no choice, then you sit with a different social challenge. Because that means that sometimes in our world, we say that humans have no free will. And you know how it's the easiest way to test that? This is an easy test.
Yeah.
Let's say that you're done with this breathing thing because the world's oxygen is done. You're done with this eating thing because food's too expensive. You're done with this wearing clothes thing.
You will die. It's an existential threat, isn't it?
But think about it. I'm done with this wearing clothes thing. I'm done with this going to work thing. I'm done with this talking to friends thing. I'm done with. When you do that test, I'm done with, you're going to get narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower, and you're going to find that you live down this entirely, well-organized, very narrow tunnel, and a few choices that you can make, even those you don't make. as a human. You still just go to Google, you don't look at evidence, you don't do the research, you don't care. Because unless it affects you negatively, you don't mind participating. So that creates a very different way of maybe thinking about it.
Certainly, and you know, this is one of those interviews you're going to have to listen to again and again because it's just so multi-layered and it's interconnected with the things we want, the things we need, the things we don't think about that other things are thinking about and catalyzing, our behavior. What would you want your parting shot to be in this moment, in this conversation?
Well, I can maybe give you a glimpse of what we've been agonizing over, and that is that if you think of the concept of novelty, just for a moment, we're on this pursuit of wanting new things all the time. We want new clothes, new designs, new music, new movies, new experiences, new things to happen to us all the time. That means that if I take the classical definition of artificial intelligence, it is grounded in the concept of data. That means that whatever you have done looking backward is a pure definition of you looking forward. And we want to break that. We are agonizing over what happens if you have a true sense of every minute, every second that goes by, you are a new person. You are on a journey from where you come from to your end, whatever that end might be. At the moment, there is no evidence that you're going to live forever, so that means you will finish, you'll expire at some point. On that journey, you can never say, I'm going to try this again, because you have never done it at that time when the entire world has changed. If you could freeze our cosmic existence, and you could say that everybody else stays exactly the same, and I'm the only one who has taken a step forward and I try something again, only then can I expect same outcome. But as soon as the entire world is changing, everybody is competing and participating and spending and engaging, the world's changing. So even if you try the same strategy again, what you think the same strategy is, the world's changed. And because we're compacting time more and more, that means that thinking about, we kind of reason that life happens in the moment and not in batches. It happens as we experience it, and not just looking over our shoulder to say, oh, check, I did this last month on my birthday, or last year on my birthday, I'm going to do exactly the same this year. And next year and the next year, no. Because if it was my 18th, or it was another birthday that I thought was important, you change all the time. And we have not spent enough time making sense of this human, and especially in the context of their spending. Because it's the evidence lies in every payment that you've made. The money that you spent on eating, on driving, on putting in fuel, on doing whatever you do, is not the payment. It's evidence of a human biological being performing a real life activity in the hyper-local existence where they find themselves. Once you see that, I think you see a new world. And we're agonizing over that. And we're busy building technology for that to see how do we automate.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that room where that discussion is happening, because it is about using, historical behavior. It is about building, a profile. It is about a deep understanding of human consciousness, all sorts of things, how we reason, our sense of purpose, and all of it is manifest in the way that we transact and spend money. I think as we conclude, thank you, Dr. Van Zyl, Jay, for giving us a lot to think about. And it is a very important component of the discussion, which is really around, payment architecture and all the hard and tactile stuff. There's a heart and a heartbeat to everything that we've discussed in this conference venue over the last 2 days. So thank you for bringing that to our studio. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I love it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.